Hello, everybody. I'm Zenith Rule, and welcome back to the Disney debate, where Kat Mac and I talk about Disney products and Disney in general. So how is it going today, Kat?
Going pretty well. Bit early for me, but overall having a good time. Watched Fantasia and had a really awesome time listening to some great classical music.
Yeah, we watched Fantasia for today, and my God, I mean, I don't really remember too much from when I was a child, but watching it now, oh my God, this is such an amazing film.
Oh yeah, no doubt. The animation is simply breathtaking. It is like the finest of any I've seen in all of his films. Like even the later stuff.
Yeah, maybe even like more so than the Renaissance period. It's a different type of animation. It is a lot of it's a lot of 2D background with somewhat 3D modeling from the foreground, but overall, it's incredible animation. It's an experience. Fantasia itself is something so new and different. Because for first of all, this is the very first music video.
Yeah, you could say that actually. The because there's no like underlying plot. It's all a bunch of little little stories like meshed together into one long movie. It's sort of like his like melody times that he used to do, but
Hmm.
it's done on a much grander scale and with much more sophisticated music.
Hmm. And it's just they state from the very beginning that there's three types of music. There's the kind that tells a story. There's a kind that elicits an emotional response. It has a certain point to it. But there's a third kind that doesn't really have a point. It's just music for music's sake. And you can definitely see the difference between the three and how they're approached in Fantasia. Um, Fantasia has eight different pieces, um, eight different musical segments, not including the intermission, which was kind of different.
Yeah.
I didn't expect there to be an intermission in the middle of my film, but it was very different. Now, before we get into the individual music and whatsoever, like, what was your first impression upon like seeing this again? Like, what did you think?
Well, I know when I was little, I didn't really get that Fantasia wasn't supposed to be a conventional movie. 'Cause I guess I kind of looked at it as I looked at like all the other cartoons I watched. They were just little segments, little stories here and there, and just nobody talked. But I really enjoyed like the parts with like that had story, like the Sorcerer's Apprentice and was it the Pastoral Symphony and Dance of the Hours? Because you actually had characters, to convey the emotion and do all the gestures that flowed with the music. So
Hmm.
those parts that I actually liked. Like the other stuff, kind of lost my attention. But then again, I had a real bad attention span, and I still kind of do. But well, seeing it again, I was able to get a greater appreciation for it because I do have a good appreciation for classical music because I have listened to it a lot. At my job, on the bus to my job. They'll play just it's sort of like elevator music, but this is just so much more beautiful and just so wonderful to listen to, and it's so calming, and it creates such a beautiful picture. And
Hmm.
and of course, seeing the animation to go with that is it's breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking.
For me, when I was a child, what really struck me about this film was mostly the little characters involved because it's a very kind of cute approach to the film. There's a lot of very cute parts to it, but as an adult watching it again, I can really appreciate it a lot more. I think um, I really enjoyed the classical music, and that's the thing is you don't see a lot of classical music today. You don't see a lot of a lot of these older styles of music today.
Yeah.
And
Sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
To say like yes, it is a shame that you don't hear much of that music anymore. Like usually it'll be used in like as a background for clips and stuff, but it is a shame that these great classical pieces are sort of getting lost amongst all the popular like pop songs and rap and all that. So
Mm. I mean, we had in the past we had these amazing musical pieces with not just like classical music, not just like Beethoven symphonies and stuff like that, but we also had like big band and swing, we had jazz, we had all these different genres that we don't have today.
yeah, it's a real shame. But it's good to know that films like Fantasia still exist, though. To provide sort of like a time capsule for these types of songs.
And a lot of these are really timeless. And I think the only really way to do this film justice is instead of going like story characters and whatnot like we usually do, we should go by individual piece.
Okay, we could do that.
And so let's start off with the very beginning, which is Toccata and Fugue in D minor.
Hmm.
And I think perhaps this is the weakest of the animated pieces.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I always skipped over this when I was a kid, just because like I really had no idea what was going on. All I know is that it started off with like that ominous music, like da 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 da, and I'm thinking, oh, I know this song, and then it just like continues on, and I'm like, okay, I'm bored. Fast forward.
See, I love the song. I don't think the song is the problem. I just think it's the beginning of their animation pieces, and so not really much happens with it. They do some images with like orchestra and whatnot, but for the most part, it's just meant to set up the idea of what's going on.
Yeah, but I think that I can understand why they probably didn't add anything. They wanted to like show the orchestra itself because really they should get credit and some screen time for all the hard work they put into it. I just think that they could have, maybe showcased it a little more, added a bit more animation, or like added some like real visual accompaniment to like the music as it was made instead of just highlighting the the uh the musicians in just different shades of light.
Yeah, I did like when they started going into like the different like string instruments and how they were like moving around the screen, but really only the second half of the piece has a lot of the animation in it.
Yeah, and even then it's nothing too memorable. Like nothing that really sticks out in my mind. I mean, I watched it, but then I can't really think of anything aside from the different coloring and the growing brightness or dimness of the lights. So yeah, it didn't leave that big of an impression on me.
Yeah, I mean it's more of an opening piece, I think, and I think it's more about showing what the music is doing in this particular film.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that where they really got their good start in this film is the second piece, which is the Nutcracker Suite.
Oh yes, that I remember a lot more fondly because it has all the wildlife, all the flora and fauna, coming to life, and even if they're not like alive per se, their movements flow so beautifully with the music. It's just fun to watch. Like it's really beautiful, especially with the fairies and the flower petals and all that.
And the thing is, I love the Nutcracker musical. It's one of the first plays that I saw, at first musicals that I saw,
Mm.
and I remember very fondly all the music in it. I'm really surprised that this is the composer's least favorite work that he did.
Kind
Um,
of ironic when you think about it, considering how
yeah,
popular it became.
but I just love how it's used here because it's showing different like a bunch of different vignettes of different things happening. We have the fairies like waking up with the morning dew. It's like springtime. We see them skating around in the winter. We see this fish in underwater and this mysterious melody. We see a bunch of flower petals dancing when it gets to the main piece. It's really well done.
Oh, no doubt.
I just really love how this piece was put together in time with the animation. And I think this is where it really shows like how everything builds from the beginning, where we see the beginning of like the fairies waking up and how everything kind of starts off small and then builds up to this big climax where all the flowers are like doing the Russian dance. It's so amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, I like the Russian dance. That was always my favorite part of the Nutcracker Suite because it's so jovial, it's so full of energy, and I always wanted to like actually dance to it just to see how crazy I could get.
It's a hard piece to dance to, but I love the music involved. I love the animation involved. Now, I don't think this piece itself is the best animation in Fantasia, but it's different. I find that each piece has kind of an almost different style of animation to it.
Mhm.
And where the first one was mostly just kind of animated like clouds and, colors and stuff. This is more okay, they've animated flowers and they've animated like a really well done like the fish part with the tail. So the underwater sequence is brilliant.
Yeah. I remember saying that, Cleo was one of the most beautiful fish I've ever seen. These fish are just dazzling, especially with their really long, steep, transparent tails. But that is just from what I heard, they actually hired Arabian dancers to dance to the music, and then they just drew them in fish form. And you can really tell too, how Arabian dancers dance with those the see-through scarves and shawls and all that.
Yep, and I thought it was just a really well done piece. I think the animation only gets better from here, and that's saying something. But I think my favorite part of that sequence is either the fairies skating on the ponds, or it's the climax of the piece.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love the little frost fairies.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but wonder. But I don't know if you've watched this somewhere down the line. The Tinkerbell movies at all?
I have not, but we're going to have to since it's Disney.
Of course. Well, I just kept thinking, while I was watching it, like, oh, they're showing different fairies, like in Tinkerbell. They're showing there's the flower fairies, there's the light fairies, there's the frost fairies. And like...
There's a skank fairy.
So I couldn't help but think of that. And I'm sure that, probably wasn't their original intention, but I couldn't help but think back to that.
Mm-hmm. And, well, especially because Peter Pan came way after this, but I think maybe when they went around to creating Peter Pan, they thought back to one of their greatest pieces with fairies.
Fairies!
So, overall, what do you think of the Nutcracker Suite and in Fantasia? What do you think? How do you think it stacks up compared to everything else?
A lot better than the first piece, definitely. Much better animated, much more memorable music.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah, a bit slow at times because it's a lot of the music's very flowy, very easygoing, and you can easily get lost in it. But for the most part, they have enough variation where it keeps your attention.
Yeah, I have to agree. Where it's not it's not the crowning piece in this, but I think it's a little bit better than the beginning. I think it's a lot better animated, and I think it's building up to the midpoint where we have the next two pieces are pretty damn good. But this one is more of a vignette piece where we have different parts to it, and it goes around with the Nutcracker Suite. Because the Nutcracker Suite isn't really one piece. It's a bunch of smaller segments put together.
Yeah, which is kind of odd considering that the movie is basically a bunch of segments just put together. Like, in a way, it kind of makes it a little more disjointed, but at least it has, all a similar theme in which it has, it has like fairies and flowers all doing the same dances.
hmm when I first looked at it, what I thought of was the passage of seasons, where we have the fairies with the dew, and then we have the fairies with frost and everything. So,
Yeah, going from spring to winter.
hmm
I could see it definitely.
but now let's move on to one of the centerpieces in Fantasia, the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Mm, I love that one. It's one of my favorites, for obvious reasons.
I I really enjoyed that one. But it was different for me because the first two pieces seemed like they were musical pieces that were adapted to animation, whereas this was animation. It was animation that was adapted to musical pieces. It seemed like the music was written specifically for the animation.
Um, I'm not sure if it was or not. I mean, I'm, I'm pretty sure that it's not as old as the other songs. I think it's a little more recent.
hmm
But for the most part, I believe they did kind of have this, with some more solid characters in mind. Hence why they probably added Mickey Mouse in there, because I know Disney wanted to add Mickey into the movie because he by that point, with the war going on and everything, he wasn't able to have made as many cartoons as he would have liked. So Mickey was kind of decreasing in popularity,
hmm
pretty much losing out to Bugs Bunny. So this is a way of kind of like thrusting him back into the limelight and, having like a character to promote in advertising for, all the kiddies to come sing. So
And I mean, I absolutely love this piece. I think the animation is simply stellar. I love the part in Mickey's dream sequence when he's channeling the water, and they use that for the beginning of a lot of movies where they showcase him, pushing up the water.
oh yeah. Well, actually, if you ever gone to Disney World at MGM Studios,
hmm
one of their final shows, because like in other places like Magic Kingdom or Epcot where they have like their final show is a firework display. In MGM Studio they have a show called Fantasmic, and this is sort of like Mickey going through a dream sequence, and it does open with scenes from Fantasia, namely The Sorcerer's Apprentice. So, and a big way that they show scenes from Fantasia is they have like this huge wall of water that appears in this pool in the center, and
hmm
and they show the footage on the water. So you see
Oh.
so you see Mickey standing within like a whole wall of water. It looks like he's actually standing there, and as he starts, moving his hands around, trying to like summon the water up and everything, water actually just shoot into the air.
That's pretty damn awesome,
Oh,
I
it
have to
is.
say.
I guess there is footage on YouTube. You definitely have to see it to get like to get to get the full visual of it. But I always think of that every time I see that scene where he starts summoning up the water and everything.
hmm
It's just so damn cool.
It's extremely well animated. It's a great piece. It's a great story. Um,
And it shows Mickey doing what he used to do best, which was cause trouble.
the only criticism I have to say for the story is that Yen Sid forgives him way too easily.
I don't think he forgave him. I think more like, you know, okay, I clean up your mess, you're gonna work it off, and then I'm gonna punish you later.
That's true. That is true. But I just think this is one of Disney's flagship animating projects, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, anything.
Hmm.
And it's such a fascinating thing to see again after all these years and to see why it was so popular because the music itself isn't like the biggest part of it though.
It does add a lot to it, particularly when he enchants the broom to start doing his chores. You could like you could hear how the music just goes so well with how the broom walks.
hmm And but then once it starts, it gets into the oh yes, this is a fun tune mode, and I really like it, and I think it does add a lot to what's going around.
Yeah, and it gets more
And
intense as the it gets more intense as the water slowly overflows and fills the whole area and like floods it. And then when you get even more broomsticks flooding the place, it gets so intense until finally the sorcerer comes along and he's like, "What the hell is all this?" And then he shuts it down. He pretty much just shuts off the music as well. That's power right there.
he becomes Moses.
Pretty much. I gotta say though, when I was little, I was a little bit afraid of the sorcerer because he looks so scary, especially with that very strong gaze of his. It's like he has no eyelids. That's how strong it was.
And he also, like, in the beginning, it shows him conjuring a bunch of things. They make him out to be kind of a dark wizard sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know this about the sorcerer's name. I know officially he was given the name Yen Sid, and the reason because of that is Yen Sid spelled backwards is Disney.
That's awesome. I have to say that's pretty awesome, and that's clever. You know it's mysterious, and at the same time it's like it makes sense.
Yeah, I think they didn't name him till later on with one of the re-releases because he was never given an official name, and I guess after Disney passed, like I guess they sort of associated the wizard with Disney because you know he was Mickey's teacher, like his mentor, and as we all know, Disney was the one who created Mickey. So I guess that was their way of incorporating Disney into cartoon form.
hmm So next, after the awesomeness that is the Sorcerer's Apprentice, we have the Rite of Spring, which I really enjoyed, but as you were telling me earlier, it is a bit long. It's a bit longer than the others, and it's a bit slow.
Yeah, one thing that I remember when I was little is that I would not pay attention to this at all for like the first half of it. Like I glance in every now and again, but I really because when I watched this again, there was a lot of stuff in it that I did not remember, and honestly, the only part that I did remember was when the dinosaurs show up. Because
hmm
by that point, I had watched The Land Before Time, so I was in that phase where I thought dinosaurs were cool and all that. So when I watched this, I wanted to see all the dinosaurs, and having to sit through that long musical piece at the beginning was just a lot too much for me. So my dad always ended up having to fast forward it for me to the dinosaur part. I'm like, yay, dinosaurs! And then that T-Rex showed up. And I'm like, ah!
This was one of the pieces I actually hadn't remembered, and looking at it, I like how it's bookended. It begins with like going into the universe, and it's very like ambient. It's very quiet.
Yeah, definitely. Like I do like how it builds up and everything, to the life forming and then to like the big dinosaurs and stuff and then to that big moment where, everything just goes to hell.
hmm And I like when it shows the dinosaurs interacting with each other, and they feel alive.
Mhm.
Much even more so than like the characters did in Pinocchio and whatnot. They just feel like real creatures, especially with the amount and depth of the animation. And one thing about the animation here is they use lighting extremely well, lighting and shading,
Mhm.
to make everything seem so alive.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed. It's actually very dark throughout most of this piece. Like like again, referencing back to my old VHS collection, because of my films, because of how old they were, and because you know how film deteriorates over time. At one point, when I would watch Fantasia on VHS, the film was so dark for this section, like I could barely make anything out aside from a couple of eyeballs. So, like I see outlines of the dinosaurs, but I couldn't really see their faces, and I couldn't see like all like the creatures like swimming in the ocean or anything like that. I just saw eyeballs, and it actually made it look really scary.
But yeah, I love how this is built up. I love how it goes to this a couple different climaxes because we get the first one is when like the land is being formed and then it goes all quiet again and the creatures are slowly evolving.
Mhm.
And then there's another climax with the T-Rex.
Oh, I love
Um,
that part. That's my favorite part of this piece. Just seeing like,
mhm.
just seeing the Stegosaurus like just take on a T-Rex. That is really awesome to watch. It's a shame that he doesn't last long.
Mm.
Poor thing.
And then and then it goes to the part where they're all slowly dying out, and there's the drought and the famine,
That was so
and
depressing.
it is, and then it ends kind of on a very mellow note where it just kind of zooms out of the universe again.
From what I heard, they were originally going to take it further and actually show the evolution of man. You know how they sprang up from the dinosaurs and evolved into today's society, but they ended up leaving it out because they were given shit from the evolutionist people. You know, the religious fanatics who said that they would boycott this movie if they showed evolution, which is against God and blah 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 blah.
Goddamn religious people! Can't you just let a film be a film?
Yeah, and seeing as how like Disney had enough problems trying to get this film off the ground, I guess he probably just took the safe route. Otherwise, I'm sure had he had more success and more money, he probably would have taken that chance, and it would have been really cool to see.
Mm. But as it stands, I think this is certainly a very strong piece. I hesitate to call it the strongest because I think it would have worked better if it was a standalone product, if they had made a movie like this.
Yeah, because it kind of like because you had all the power from the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and then the energy just goes down at the beginning, and then it takes a while to build back up, and then and then it just goes and then it goes right back down at the end. So it's not a consistent, a consistent system of sounds at all. It's very it's like sort of like a roller coaster almost.
Definitely, definitely. And it's not the best segue into the intermission that they have.
Yeah, I think I could. Would have preferred actually if maybe the Sorcerer's Apprentice and Rite of Spring were switched. Had the Rite of Spring in the middle, and then so you have it starts off slow, sort of from how the Nutcracker Suite ended, to build up and back down, and then go right back up with the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and then end at that.
I think that would have been a little bit better, yeah, in my opinion.
Because that's the way you should end a first act, on a high note. Makes people want to come back for more.
hmm And now let's talk about the intermission a bit. Um, do you think it's necessary for them to have this?
Well, I know it was very common back in the day, particularly with films, done by Roger and Hammerstein, because they wanted their movies to be sort of like real life musicals, with an intermission. Plus, it allowed them to make longer films and, at least give the audience, a break so they can, go to the bathroom, get snacks and all that stuff. So I can understand them doing that. So I guess they kind of wanted to make it seem like, they were actually sitting through a real orchestra. So, so I didn't think it was completely unnecessary, but seeing as this is like a film on VHS, it is kind of like abrupt. Particularly how it kind of just teetered off at the end of the last piece. So I guess you could say it is unnecessary now.
I mean, I pretty much just skipped right through it for the most part because it was just them saying, okay, here's the sound a certain instrument makes, and let's play around with it a little bit. It was to me, it was just sort of unnecessary, and it took 15 minutes away from a 2-hour film.
Yeah, it seemed almost like we were like sitting in class.
Mm.
Just saying like, yeah, this is what this sounds like. This is what this sounds like. Because I mean, I like the soundtrack, the way that it looked, the way that they showed it mimicking sounds. But after a while, it kind of lost my interest, and yeah, I was kind of like waiting for them to just move on to the next piece.
And the next piece, the Pastoral Symphony, is a very good way to start up again. Um, I personally really enjoyed this piece. I don't think there's like any bad pieces in Fantasia, but I definitely think this was one of the better ones.
Definitely. I remember this very fondly when I was a kid because that I think this piece is actually responsible for igniting my interest in Greek mythology.
Hmm.
I like the idea of centaurs and of fauns and cupids and that big fat guy who turned out to be a god.
And Dionysus.
Yeah, or Bacchus as he's known in this version.
Mm.
So,
And it's such an interesting piece. First of all, it's kind of a different style of animation. Everything's so bright and colorful.
oh yeah, I love that. The colors is just amazing.
And I like how I like how it really segues from like all the cute, charming little scenes into the passage of time and the happy, joyous nature, and then all of a sudden the rain happens and things change a little bit.
Oh yeah. Um, in a way, you can kind of compare it to the Rites of Spring. How the music starts off kind of slow and like easy flowing, and then really builds up towards the climax at the end. So, but this is a lot more visually appealing, and also like the visuals a lot more fun to watch at the beginning. You can also kind of compare it to the Nutcracker Suite in that it had a whole bunch of different segments in it. You know that, except unlike that one, they actually was it they actually segued into each other like really well. Like
Hmm.
like it starts off with the Pegasus ponies all learning to fly and swimming about, and then it goes to the centaurs. The girls beautifying themselves up for the males, and then they all gather together at once to dance to Dionysus.
And I think what really works more about this piece is it doesn't break everything up like the Nutcracker Suite did,
Mm-hmm.
and it isn't as slow as the Rite of Spring is, and so everything kind of flows together. And when it does build up, it builds up to an even bigger climax, and then after the climax happens, everything washes away, and you find out that everyone's fine and it's happy again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gotta say, this is a real asshole. Just seriously, like they're all dancing around, having fun. Bacchus is getting drunk, chasing women, doing what he does best. And all of a sudden, Zeus shows up out of nowhere, and he's like, "Why didn't you invite me?" And he's like, "I'm gonna smite you for that." And he just starts trying to strike him down with lightning, and it's like, "What the hell, man?"
Well, as we all know, Zeus is kind of the asshole of the gods.
Well, yeah, but it's like, this is his son. His son's like the god of wine and dance and partying and stuff. He's doing what he does best, and he's like, "You can't take all the women away from me. I'm gonna smite you for that."
Tell that to him.
Yeah.
Um, Overall, though, I think this is where like the best pieces of Fantasia begin with Pastoral Symphony. The stuff before was really good, but a couple things felt either out of place or disjointed.
Right.
Um, Here is where things just flow really well together.
Oh, absolutely. It actually does sort of tell a story. I mean, not a solid story per se, but at least, it shows the day in life of people in Greek mythology. And, it's not extremely exciting, but it's still a lot of fun to watch.
Hmm.
I say I really like the animation on the centaurs because the women are really beautiful, and it's nice to see more animated women that they moved on from showing just the spaghetti legs and arms of from was it the goddess of spring, and the plain like Barbie doll esque form of Snow White.
Hmm. And it's not rotoscope animation. It's all hand drawn, and it's beautiful.
Oh, absolutely.
Now let's move on to the Dance of the Hours, which is a very fun piece, and this is, like I said, the only one that I really remember from my childhood. And it's a piece that revels in, having fun and what the hell, let's just do this animation the way it is. And it's not supposed to be really taken seriously.
No.
I have a feeling this is more the second type of music that they talked about. It's meant to elicit an emotional response.
Mhm. Definitely, and I guess show the transition from morning to night, sort of, and
Hmm.
how certain elements conflict with each other.
And I love the scene with the ballet and the hippo, and just it's such a fun piece.
Yeah, like, 'cause I used to take ballet when I was little, so seeing, the ostriches and hippos and elephants all doing ballet was like really fun. And I would like try to mimic them because they actually did use real ballet dancers when they were drawing them, which you can obviously tell with the detail on the ostrich's legs.
I mean, everything looks so well animated, so detailed.
Mhm.
It's a great piece. I think my favorite part was just the climax when everyone's on screen. We have all these alligators, grabbing the ostriches and hippos, and they're dancing, and it builds up to something really really good.
It's kind of scary when you think about it, like the look on their faces. You don't know if they're gonna like eat them or gang rape them.
That would be dark.
Well, that's the one thing that always confused me when I was little. When the one alligator starts dancing with the hippopotamus, I couldn't tell if he was seducing her because he fell in love with her, or he was seducing her so he could eat her. 'Cause
I think it's more love. It's Disney, so.
I know, but like the look on his face, like that's the one thing I think they could have done a little better. Is like the alligators look way too menacing. So even when like they show him apparently falling in love, it seems more like he's like smacking his lips, thinking, "Ooh, this is gonna make a good feast." That's just my thought. But I guess they're supposed to like show, because they're supposed to be like day and night, like forbidden lovers never supposed to meet, but they do and they fall in love. So
Who says a hippopotamus and an alligator can't have love together? It's a little bit strange, but I don't think anyone can possibly say no to that.
true. I guess he likes junk in the trunk.
But yeah, I think this is more piece to just be enjoyed and have fun with it. I don't think there's more of a point beyond the music set to animation and just have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do like the physics in this too.
Hmm.
Alligator can lift up a hippopotamus. Elephants can be blown away by the wind. Uh, a bunch of bubbles can lift a hippopotamus while it's sleeping. 'Cause I love cartoon physics.
Cartoon physics are awesome.
Yes.
And then we move on to the other major piece of Fantasia, and that is Night on Bald Mountain and which is Night on Bald Mountain and Ave Maria.
Yes.
And let me just say, I absolutely loved this piece. It's such an amazing feat of animation. This is the best animation in the film entirely. It's the most creative. The song itself is amazing, and it's my favorite piece.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And here's the weird thing, like I wasn't that scared by it when I was little. I mean, it was no, don't get me wrong, it was very intimidating, very like dark and menacing. But I was actually like really intrigued by it because having gone to like was it Catholic school and CCD and all that, I was always taught about how bad the devil was and stuff. But I was like never like told about what he looked like or what he did aside from trying to like tempt people. And to see him in this form was like awe-inspiring.
It's like the first thing you see, he opens up his wings and he's like this big gargoyle, and he has this like ugly chiseled face with this menacing scowl on it, and he gathers all his followers, and he's surrounded by fire. And when he creates something, like you can see, like beings of lust and ghosts like swarming to him.
Hmm.
It's such a creative scene, and it's such an amazing scene in anything. It's probably the best animated work I can think of.
Yeah, it's so terrifying but so mesmerizing. Like, and it's always like it seems like each of the demons have a unique description about them. A different design, and it's really cool. Like, it sucks that that they go by so fast and they're so small that you can't make out the exact details. But just to try to see all of them at once, it's really cool. It's like something out of a Halloween party.
There's a reason why this is so well remembered as it is. Like, for one thing, the Night on Bald Mountain is an amazing song, but when coupled with this, it is such a great feat of animation and of just existence. It's an experience just watching it.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, and getting back to what I was talking about before about MGM's show, Fantasmic, there is a part in the show where all the villains get together to try to destroy Mickey Mouse, and the last villain in their line of villains is actually the devil, or Chernabog as he's called. And
Hmm.
it shows him, summoning up, his creatures of the night and everything. And at one point, when he summons fire, fire actually sprouts up from the water. So cool looking.
I think that Chernabog, or the devil, is an amazingly well animated character. I think this is one of Disney's best pieces in the history of Disney.
Hmm. And
And
it's actually weird that because his original design, they were actually going to base it on Dracula, and they even had Bela Lugosi come in costume, and they tried to draw him like Dracula, but because of because of just the way his fingers were and everything, because like Bela Lugosi, as intimidating and scary as he is still kind of like a small man. They thought that it
mhm.
wasn't intimidating enough, and plus a little hard to draw. So instead, the animator just had his assistant director, or whatever, who happened to be very muscular, take off his shirt, and he drew him like that. So that's why Satan is sporting a six pack and huge biceps.
And then we segue into Ave Maria, and I think this is a nice juxtaposition where we have the devil just reveling in everything he does, and then all of a sudden the sun comes up, and it's like it's on a Sunday, and all the religion comes up, and it's like, oh crap, I have to go away now.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. That they show that the devil isn't always going to be around to make life miserable and to always dark days in the end. Goodness and light will always overcome. But here's the thing, and I think this is where we're going to really disagree, especially with critics. I do not like Ave Maria. I'm sorry. I never cared for that piece ever. Even when I was a
I like the ending. I like the ending climax, but I can see where you're coming from. I don't really like the beginning of it. It's just like non-existent almost.
this thing, I don't like any of it. I really would have preferred if they ended it on on Chernabog just retreating back into the mountain and ending the piece right there, because that was a good place. They had the strong beginning, the big build up, and then the transition to where he recedes and everything's good again. And then you just
Hmm.
have this boring religious piece just tacked on at the end that's so slow moving, and there's really no visuals aside from the glowing light of heaven and all that. And then it just ends. I mean,
Hmm.
I really do not think it was needed, and I just do not care for it whatsoever. I really think that would have been better off just leaving it out at the end. Because every time when I was little, right after Bald Mountain was done, I'd immediately shut off the film because I had no desire just to watch the rest. Because really, what else is there to watch?
Yeah, it's really only 4 minutes long. I can see where you're coming from, but I think what they were trying to do with the piece is just show a good and evil juxtaposition. Does it work as well as it could have? Probably not, but I genuinely like it.
I mean, like, they could have shortened it and just, had where the devil retreats and the sun comes up and all of a sudden you hear a choir of angels and all this light and then you see maybe like angels or something descending from heaven, shining down on the land that was like where all the evil spirits were and, bringing the evil spirits, redeeming them and making them into angels. I
Hmm.
think that would have been a much better ending. You know?
That would have been cool. That would have been interesting to see that these people aren't like continually evil. They can be saved.
Yeah, because Chernobog is the one that summoned him up from the dead and then just fucked around with him for his amusement. You know, I'm sure some of them probably were evil, deserved it, and probably were having fun, dancing around in the hellfires. But I'm sure some of them were like poor victims that were just trying to be at rest. And here's Satan, just ripping their spirits out of the ground, saying, I'm gonna turn you beautiful, and then I'm gonna turn you ugly, and then I'm gonna throw you into the fire. So I think it would have been better, if they just showed, the light of God redeeming them at the end or putting their souls at peace. I just think it
Hmm.
would be much better, visual storytelling wise and visual wise.
Now overall, what do you think of Fantasia after seeing it again?
Um, for the most part, I do like it. It's definitely one of Disney's classics, no doubt about that. In terms of a movie, like I really don't think it should have the title of movie more than like a let's say a 2 hour melody time cartoon. Because because really, when you think of movie, you think of a story with characters with a beginning, a middle, and an end. You really don't think of Fantasia in that aspect. It's really a bunch of disjointed stories all told together in a sequence, and that sort of doesn't go into each other that well.
Hmm.
Like,
It's an experience. Fantasia itself is such a different experience. It's like one of those indie films you see, and it's like that's different. Fantasia, especially at the time, is so different. It's so revolutionary. And while there's a few elements that I didn't particularly care for, there's no doubt about it that this is Disney's masterpiece. This is something that Disney worked hard for.
mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he put so much money into this and so much time, and the crap that he made his animators go through. Cause I talked to my roommate, who's actually has a degree in animation, and he was really into Disney animation as well. And he told me that Fantasia almost didn't get made because the animators had to make so many scenes, all in oil painting, like thousands upon thousands of scenes, and they weren't getting paid. They were like working very long hours. Like it was pretty much slave labor. So you could, so of course they were threatening to boycott, and Disney, I'm sure, did what he could, but at the same time, I think his ambition was causing them to drop, being to push them a little too hard. But thankfully, the thing got made, and you could definitely see the effort and the love and dedication that went into it.
I agree. I think this is a really, really lovingly made film. Well, not even film, just an experience. And I think it's something everyone should watch. If you're going into a creative medium, just watch it because there's so much. It's very inspirational. It's very different from what you expect. And I think for the third film that Disney did to make this is amazing.
Absolutely. And it's a shame that, like, that its early start, they met with so many different critics and views on it, and it wasn't until, like, the 80s or 90s that it was truly appreciated. Because, like, when it first released, it was panned by a lot of people. Like, it was panned by musical critics and snobs, saying that all music doesn't need to have visual aid, and this was unnecessary, and Disney's getting too highbrow for people. And of course, it didn't appeal to like the kids because even though it had some aspects in it that kids would like, the long music pieces didn't keep their attention. So of course it wasn't truly engaging for them, and same thing for the parents, trying to take them to see something nice. Plus, the adults that saw Snow White, Pinocchio were expecting more from Disney, and I guess this sudden change just didn't sit well with them. And then you had in the '60s when it was re-released that the main people that went to see Fantasia were hippies. So pretty much got high, went to the movie, thought it was an awesome experience, and pretty much thought that oh, this movie was made because Disney got high and thought this was a good idea, so, which is completely inaccurate.
No. This is Disney thinking so ahead of his time and being like, what if we tried this? In fact, pretty much everything he's done with his first three films were like, okay, let's try something new, let's try something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's really shown in Fantasia. I think Fantasia is one of Disney's best films without a story.
Absolutely. If you put in that category, definitely.
Mm-hmm. The best film he's made that it's just, you gotta watch it.
Mm-hmm. Even, I definitely say if you're a movie snob or something, this might irk you a little just because there's no real story or flow or anything like that or characters. But
call it experimental.
Yeah, if you're really into animation or music or just into abstract ideals or projects, then I'm pretty sure you would like this movie.
I highly recommend this to anyone. I mean, you may or may not like it, but you just have to pick it up, watch it, and see for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty much all we have for the Disney debate today. Before my microphone completely, craps out or some audio flub happens. For some reason we've been having audio trouble. But next week, when I figure this out, next week we are going to be talking about The Reluctant Dragon. And I have no idea what that movie is about. But we're going to watch it because it's the next film that Disney made.
I sort of know what it's about. I believe I watched it once when I was little, but I don't remember too well. But I look forward to seeing it again. And from what I read, it's kind of an interesting plot, but we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really remember what it is. I remember Pete's dragon, but that's it. And we'll get to that in a bit later. But yeah, that was Fantasia, guys. It was a very different experience. I enjoyed every single second, and looking forward to next week. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I am Zenith Rule. If you have any comments, criticisms, suggestions, or anything else, please leave them at zenithrule.blip.tv, or you can follow Kat Mac and I at twitter.com/zenithrule or twitter.com/EphraimTRabbit. And we will see you next time. I'm Zenith Rule.
And I'm Kat Mac /EphraimTRabbit/Kat P. Critic.
And we will see you next time.
TTFN to top for now.
Later.
Thank you for watching The Media Meltdown. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome videos. And if you like what you see, show your support on the Patreon page at patreon.com/Media Meltdown. See you all next time on The Media Meltdown.